I'd always believed my marriage to Sabrina was unshakable, a union forged from shared dreams, quiet moments of laughter, and a deep, unspoken respect. We'd built a life together over the years, picking out furniture for our little house, planning weekend getaways, dreaming about a future with kids someday. I thought we were a team, two people moving in sync towards something meaningful. But that illusion came crashing down one ordinary afternoon, a day that started like any other but ended with my world irreversibly altered. I was in the kitchen rinsing a coffee mug when I heard her voice drifting from the living room. She was on the phone, her tone sharp and edged with frustration, the kind she usually reserved for arguments with her sister or complaints about work. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop. Honestly, I wasn't. But the words slipped through the air and lodged themselves in my chest like shards of glass. "I'm married down," she said, her voice low but unmistakable. "I should have stayed with James. He gets me in a way he never will." My hands froze under the faucet, the water running cold over my fingers. James, her ex, the one she dated before me, the one she'd always brushed off as ancient history. My heart thudded painfully, each beat a hammer against my ribs as I stood there, stunned, trying to process what I just heard. In the days that followed, I couldn't shake those words. They looped in my mind, relentless, taunting me every time I looked at her. Shock gave way to a roiling mix of emotions, anger, hurt, doubt, all churning beneath the surface while I tried to act normal. I watched her more closely than I ever had before, searching for cracks in the facade of our life together. Her laughter, once a sound that warmed me, now felt hollow, like it was meant for someone else. Her smile seemed forced, her eyes darting away when they met mine. Every interaction was tinged with tension I couldn't ignore, a silent question hanging between us. What else is she hiding? The suspicion ate at me until I couldn't stand it anymore. One evening while she was in the shower, I did something I'd never thought I'd do. I picked up her phone. My hands trembled as I scrolled through her messages, my stomach twisting with every swipe. There was a thread with James, dozens of texts stretching back weeks, maybe months. "Missed you today." One read, "Can't wait to see you again," said another. They were casual, intimate, the kind of exchanges that painted a picture I didn't want to see. Each word was a slap, a confirmation of the fears I'd been wrestling with since that phone call. Then I found more. Receipts tucked in her purse for cash withdrawals I didn't recognize. A bank statement slipped into a drawer showing a savings account I'd never heard of. She was planning something, stashing money away, maybe building a life that didn't include me. The betrayal solidified into something cold and sharp, and I knew I couldn't just sit there and let it fester. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Instead, I started planning my own escape. I found a small apartment across town, a temporary place with mismatched furniture and peeling paint. But it was mine. I met with a lawyer in secret, a stern woman with a notepad full of questions and a no-nonsense demeanor who walked me through my options. At home, I kept up the act, cooking dinner, asking about her day, nodding along to her stories, while inside, I was a storm of grief and resolve. I couldn't let her see that I knew. Giving her that power felt like handing over the last piece of myself, and I refused to do it. One night, I decided to take it further. She'd said she was meeting a friend for coffee, but the way she fussed with her hair and checked the reflection told me otherwise. I followed her, my heart pounding as I trailed her car through the darkening streets. I parked a block away from a quaint little cafe, its windows glowing warmly against the evening chill, and watched from a distance. There she was, sitting across from James. They laughed, their heads bent close, her hand brushing his arm in a way that was too familiar, too tender. The sight hit me like a punch to the gut, stealing the air from my lungs. It wasn't just an emotional affair. It was a connection she was nurturing, a future she was choosing. I drove home that night in silence. The image of them burned into my mind, and I knew there was no going back. The next day I moved out. I packed a suitcase with the essentials, clothes, a few books, my laptop, and left while she was at work. The house felt eerily quiet when I walked out the door, the weight of our shared history hanging in the air like a ghost. I didn't leave a note. I didn't owe her that. After that, I kept our communication to a minimum, Short texts about logistics, nothing more. I threw myself into preparing for the divorce, gathering every piece of evidence I could, screenshots of those messages, copies of the receipts, timestamps from that night at the cafe. I wanted to be ready to protect myself from whatever came next. Weeks passed in a blur of paperwork and sleepless nights until one day, out of nowhere, she called. Her voice was shaky, hesitant. Nothing like the confident tone I'd grown used to. She said she'd been struggling since I left, that she needed to talk, to find some kind of closure. I agreed to meet her, though I wasn't sure why. Maybe part of me still wanted answers. Or maybe I just needed to see her face one last time. We met at a park near our old house, sitting on a bench under a gray sky, the air between us crackling with unspoken words. Her eyes, red-rimmed and heavy with guilt. She talked about how lost she felt, how the separation had forced her to confront her mistakes. I listened, my hands clenched in my lap, feeling the strange mix of relief and sorrow her words stirred in me. Then she brought up the divorce. She drafted an agreement, she said, laying out terms that surprised me with their fairness. It was as if she was finally owning up to what she'd done, admitting that our marriage had collapsed under the weight of her choices. Signing those papers a few days later felt like cutting a tether, painful, but liberating. We sold the house not long after. Taking a loss that stung, but seemed fitting, a final mark of how far we'd fallen. The financial hit was tough, the emotional toll even tougher, but I refused to let it define me. In the months that followed, I turned inward. I started running every morning, the rhythm of my feet against the pavement a way to quiet my mind. I found a therapist, a soft-spoken man who helped me untangle the mess of anger and sadness I'd been carrying. I picked up old hobbies I let slip away, painting, hiking, even cooking for myself again, and discovered strength I hadn't known I had. Slowly, I began to rebuild, piece by piece, redefining who I was without her shadow looming over me. I learned to value myself not through her eyes, but through my own, and that shift changed everything. Looking back, I see now the betrayal, as devastating as it was, pushed me to confront truths I'd avoided, about love, about trust, about my own worth. It broke me open. But in that breaking, I found a chance to start over. I didn't cling to bitterness or regret. Instead, I chose to let go, to find closure in the quiet certainty that I could move forward. Today, I stand stronger, more myself than I've ever been, ready to embrace whatever lies ahead with an open heart and a steady resolve.